okay, it's Friday. I'm going to do this and then this and then this. And if I don't accomplish it, there's no sleeping tonight. My list is this big. Your guys' list is this big, right? So how do you allocate with this chaos?
Yeah, I think the two things I think about are like, and I think I've had the benefit of both John, who's my co-founder at Tribe, and then Joe, my co-founder here. John used to always say, like, focus on the important, not the urgent, right? And Joe says it in a different way. He's like, what's the most important thing we have to do today, right? And he says that often. I mean, like, like, okay. Yeah, there's all this other stuff. What's the like one or two things we like have to do today? That focus is really powerful. And I think I can get caught up in like, I've got, oh, here's my fucking 175 things I need to do. And I've always got a million fucking ideas and I'm sending them in and I'm, and so like with both of them, they're like, no, okay. I know there's like 175 things, but like, what's the one thing or two things we like have to do, right? And so I think that, and I have my own methods for doing that, but I think that's really helpful is like, just start the day, write down, what are the most important things I need to do today? Okay, I'm going to do them. And for me, I've been doing, it's funny, like people are really digging me doing these like daily Instagram posts, like here's the 10 most important things for today I'm going to do. And I try and do them all.
Hello, I'm Mike Ryan. I'm the Chief Networking Officer at PIMS, and welcome to our second season of Minutes with Mike. Now in my 33rd year at PIMS, I've had the privilege of partnering with companies both large and small, supporting their PR and marketing through customized fulfillment and distribution that delivers measurable impact on their brand perception, boosts positive affinity, and fuels their overall brand performance. And throughout my career, I've had the chance to work alongside many talented folks. This is their story. On this show, we'll sit down with some of the world's top marketing and business thought leaders to learn more about their success, how they got there, how marketing helped them achieve their goals, what strategies they used, and what inspires them. Please join me on this journey as we learn from those who are changing the way we think about business. So sit back, enjoy. You're listening to Minutes with Mike.
Welcome everybody to a very special episode of Minutes with Mike. First, I have my old friend Conor Begley, who is an OG of the podcast. Episode 10, I looked it up, Conor. That's the episode you were on. Now we're into the 50s, so it feels like 100 years ago, but thanks for coming back. Joe, you know from Youth to the People. Joe and Conor have joined forces for Father's Brewing, Father's Beer. We're going to talk a lot about that. Let's jump right into it. So, Conor, let's just throw this out there. When last we spoke, we were talking all things tribe dynamics and creator IQ, and there was a sudden shift into this new world. Tell me about that.
Well, they're both fun, right? I think in different ways for sure, software versus beer. But, honestly, I got inspired by all of these beauty companies, including Joe's, in this clean beauty space where, if you looked at the beauty products, there was a real lack of transparency around what was in the products. And, when you looked at the labs, there just wasn't, there's some bad stuff in there. And so I like beer and I was looking at beer. I'm like, I don't know what's in this thing. There's no calories. There's no ingredient lists. Joe is a good friend and we talked about starting something together. And I was like, hey, Joe, what about clean beer? He's like, oh shit. He's like, that feels like a big idea. And so, yeah, so that was the start of it.
But Joe, what about you? I mean, I know you're buddies with Conor, but a little bit more than just a, hey, you want to jump in here. Like, what drew you to it? Was it something you always wanted to do, or how did that start out for you?
Yeah, well, it's funny. So as Connor and I got to know each other over the years, as I was building Youth to People, he was building Tribe. We really aligned on a lot of stuff as far as community building and what we wanted to do with the brand, and his platform was so great for it. And we ended up, once we realized we lived close to each other, kids similar age, so we'd talk, and we'd usually meet over beers. And we always kind of joke like it'd be cool to do beer. We think there's a lot of opportunity in the evolution of marketing of beer that we didn't think was happening versus what we see in beauty or fashion or other consumer areas. Connor's seeing them all. I was seeing it in beauty. And so it's like, God, that'd be pretty fun. And then again, once we talked about it, it'd be cool to do it. And we both were looking, well, not sure if we were looking for our next, kind of company to start, but I think we were thinking about it in the back of our minds because it wasn't hard to push us off that cliff, if you will. And then once we did, it was like, Connor called me. It's like, hey, what if we did clean beer? Because we talked about beer, but never there was no purpose. It was just another craft beer, which is fun, but that's hanging out with your buddies, drinking beer. That's not like, we want to build a brand here. Once he was like, let's do clean beer, I was like, ooh, that's cool. And I think the other part that excited me was we started talking about what types of great beers, because there's so many cool, great, delicious craft beers out there. but he had another friend, the guy named Harvey, who was a true expert in brewing the lager specifically, an American lager. So it was like that now is getting really exciting because it's the type of beer I'm looking for. I'm looking for a better tasting American lager. I'm not really finding it out there. This could be cool. And so bringing that craft love with like a new American lager and then the clean overarching was like, okay, this would be fun. That was about a year and a half. It was summer of 24. We started talking about it, and then
So weird.
6 months later, we're making beer, and 6 months later, we're making beer that we're selling, and 6 months later, again, we're selling beer restaurants and grocery stores, and here we are. So we've moved quickly, but it's been a ton of fun.
Connor, I don't know if you remember, but we had met for lunch in the early stages of Fathers. And he was I could just tell he was super excited about the idea. And he was kind of telling me, I'm like, what are you talking about? What plastics where? You mean the bottle? And he's like, oh, he could talk a mile a minute. So he's talking about it. He's super excited. And he pulls out of his bag this thing of plastic to show me how much plastics float around, whether it's in your body or in the average beer. And as he's telling it, like that passion, that sort of pitch about what the differentiator is with Fathers as opposed to other beers is really what I took away from that whole thing. Tell us about Fathers. Like what is cleanliness? What is clean beer?
Yeah, well, I think, we wanted to start from kind of bottoms up. So we wanted to figure out, well, what are the problems first? And is there a problem, right? So we spent $25,000 testing the top 20 beers in the US to see, what popped up. And what you found was a variety of things, right? So you found, traces of lead and arsenic. You found Roundup. You found just a shocking amount of plastic. So, the top pale ale we tested had 600 grains of sand worth of plastic per liter. It's about 40 times what you'll find in a plastic water bottle. And then, we found the other one that's crazy is you're seeing all these like forever chemicals and stuff. So, we tested these beers, and these are two of the top beers in the country, top 5 beers in the country. They had 50x and 45x, the legal limit for drinking water of one of these forever chemicals. It's like, whoa. And this thing definitively causes cancer. Like, it's not good. So he said, okay, well, what are the problems? And then I was like, well, how do we fix them? And so the way you fix them is, use organic ingredients. That gets rid of the lead, the arsenic, and the Roundup. Then you use glass bottles versus cans because the inside liners of the cans are like plastic lined. And so that sheds BPA and BPF. And then I think the third one is, this plastic, turns out it comes primarily from the hops. So like we tested Budweiser, and Budweiser was 90% less plastic than this top pale ale we tested. And Corona was 50% less than that. And Corona doesn't really even use hops. They use like a hop extract. And so we figured out through testing that was like, oh, it's these hops, which we wanted to use hops, but we didn't want to have the plastic. So we had to kind of invent our own filtration mechanism to like get all of that stuff out. And so, super fine filtration, glass bottles and organic ingredients gets rid of that. But I think what I'll say is the biggest investment we had to make was, whenever you have one of these new clean brands, and Joe talks about this a lot, there's a lot of skepticism around like, okay, well, it's clean, but that means it's not as good, right? And so we knew that we had to get the flavor. We had to like nail the flavor. So we spent, well over a year fine tuning that flavor, still fine tuning it, frankly, a little bit. 50, 60,000 samples, getting it right, doing hundreds of blind tastings. And now, we won gold at the World Beer Awards. We're like one of the highest rated lagers in the country on Untapped, if not the highest rated. And so, yeah, that was the process.
I was telling Joe before when we were chatting, I was said, I have a bar in my house, and every time my buddies come over, inevitably the conversation turns into, why haven't we quit our jobs and started our own beer company or started our own? I can make fucking bourbon. Like, let's get this. We all have bullshit. It's meaningless. Let's do this. But then I was telling him, I'm like, after watching Connor, go through these motions and following him on social media through the Father's growth, it's just there's so much more to it, right? It's just, yes, of course, everybody would enjoy drinking beer or creating beer. Everybody would think that they are the supermarketers, they can get this stuff going. But like, what would you say the biggest like holy crap moment was that you didn't expect to happen? Like as you started going, the one, maybe you can each tell me one sort of stumbling block, that approach that you were like, yeah, I didn't know about this, or I wasn't ready for this.
You go first,
Yeah,
Joe.
man, there was some stuff. Well, we'll continue to stumble. That's part of, I think, starting any company. Once we got to the place of like, this beer tastes good, none of us had ever sold a beer before. So we're like, how do we sell? What do we do? And so that was fascinating. Just like we started just walking in. Like, Connor kind of called me one day. He's like, "Hey, I went into some bars and restaurants and like sold beer." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I don't know. We had kegs. I figured, why not?" So that was like, just like, okay. This was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna try it too. So I went and did it. And the cool thing is, we live in the Bay Area. We live in Northern California. And there are so many great craft beer brands around here that a lot of the restaurants really have an expectation of new, different, unique beer. So we were able to kind of join this beer world. And I think as much as it was a stumble, it was also like we've met a lot of this local beer community and they've all been open arms. Everyone's great. Very similar to what I experienced in beauty. Like, we all talk to each other, you get to know each other. And I think that's been really cool. So as much as it was a stumble, like, how do we do this? Like, we're walking in, like, here we go. And they're like, do you have a way to charge us? Do you have a keg deposit? Like, how are you going to get it? We were, I don't know, so you're just kind of figuring out. I'd say that was the early days of like selling beer was just hysterical. And we're still learning it, but it was pretty funny out of the gate.
Yeah, I realized I was like, you can just walk in with a 6-pack, like, hey, you guys want some free beer? And they're like, yeah, we do. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then, oh, I like this beer. We should try it. It's like, okay, cool. I think it turns out like it's easier to get in, not easy, but easier to get in than it is to stay in, right? So the hard part is you get in, but how do you make sure that once it's in, people actually buy it, right? And especially if you're a new brand that nobody knows. And so I think continuing to figure that out, I think figuring out this, kind of accordion. So like in beer, there's like a 3-layered cake, right? You have like the restaurant, the grocery store, whatever. You have a middleman, like a distributor, that is typically the one actually delivering and selling the beer. And then you have, you manufacturing the beer, and getting all those coordinated at the same time, like getting the distributor excited and getting the retailer excited and getting the consumer excited all at the same time is like really hard. Right. And then I think the other thing too, that was a, big learning for us was, at the beginning, we were looking at all these breweries to buy, right, to make our own beer, because there's a lot available. But what we realized was there's basically 2 business models, right? So one business model is you make your own beer, you make a bunch of different styles of beer, you make them in really small batches. And then, most of your beer you sell through like your own location. And then the place is just immediately around your area. And what happened was a lot of brands tried to be that, like this local kind of brewery, and then scale it up nationally. And it just doesn't work. Like, you can't make the math work because you're making it like it's so expensive to make. You can't sell it for what, you just can't make any profit. And then the other model is like your Coca-Cola, right? Like, Coca-Cola doesn't have restaurants, and, they are building a brand, right? And, they do that through either contract manufacturing. Now they have their own manufacturing, obviously, but like, that's kind of how you do it. And so for us, we didn't really understand that model at the beginning. But obviously we're brand builders, right? That's what we're good at. And so I don't want to, as much as running a restaurant sounds great, that's not, not what we want to focus on. And so that was another big learning, was those kind of 2 business models, and realizing, oh, no, we want to be over here, right? We want to be brand builders, not be restaurant owners.
One of the big things that nobody considers, especially when you're dealing in the alcohol world, right? And something that, of course, we at PIMS know well is, unlike in the beauty world, you have to have certain specific licensing in order to ship. It's talking about domestic versus international. Well, I'm talking over state lines, right? Just to be able to ship that beer from San Francisco to Nevada or San Francisco to New York, it's a whole thing, right? It's not as easy as just putting it in a box and shipping it out. So what are the the retail realities of that? How does that work when you're pitching a Whole Foods, or you're pitching a a local supermarket that's going to be selling it? How does that sort of tie in with that?
Yeah, that was a fun learning, and very different from my beauty background, where you launch nationally immediately and you can ship it everywhere. And now we got these big heavy glass bottles. There's the margin structure is different. So that, but then there's a lot of rules too. Like, I think turns out you shouldn't just be shipping beer anywhere, right? The whole beer industry infrastructure was set up. It's very much locally and regionally done. So for us, we're only selling in the East Bay area. So we're 2 counties, which it's like we're east of San Francisco. We're selling in Oakland, would be the largest major city. We live in a city called Lafayette, and we're in about 20 different cities around there. We self-distribute right now is what it's called. And our license allows us to both self-distribute in California and sell through distribution. no matter what the rules are, you have to sell through a grocery store to a person or a restaurant to a person. We can never sell directly to a person. That's against no matter the permit you have. So for us, it's you do local, regional, and you grow and grow and grow. That is so a Whole Foods, which was our first retail partner, we're approved to sell beer to Whole Foods in Northern California. Eventually, we'll go for the Southern California and beyond, but they don't typically say, okay, you're in Whole Foods, let's go national, because that would be we would need a contract with the distributor in every single area that Whole Foods is in nationally, which would be, so now you're signing 20, 30 contracts. And so when we do eventually want to expand, if we want to sell beer in New York, which of course we will want to at some point, we'll sign with a distribution partner who has a specific license to grab the beer from us, bring it into New York, and then they can sell it to Whole Foods, who then can sell it to. So that's the process. But again, the good thing is it is set up. It's really set up for mostly local, regional things. And then you get big and national and you grow out. So you have time to do it, which has been cool to learn.
Yeah, what I'll say is like basically what dictates everything is that beer is physically heavy and it's cheap and it's perishable, right? And from a delivery perspective, right? People want like weekly deliveries. They don't want like a delivery once a quarter, right?
Yeah, they hold and that's a good point. They hold no inventory. There's
They
no
hold basically no inventory. What that means is, let's say I have like 200 locations in one area and I had one more location in that area. That's really easy to service, right? Because I'm already doing these routes. I'm delivering these things to these 200 locations. Add one more to the list. Really easy to do, right? But if I had one that's 3 hours away, right, I got to get the beer there, right? And I got to get it there every single week. And it only costs $20. So it's like I can't spend $20 getting it there, right? And so now what that does, it's advantageous, is like, the number 4 IPA in the country is a beer that doesn't distribute outside of Florida, right? And they're like, they do a ton of money. So you can make a lot of money in a very dense geography. So there's just a lot of network effects would be the term to like, to being like physically in one area. And so you really want to kind of like dominate, like, okay, we're going to dominate this area, then we're going to dominate the next area, they're going to dominate, like you want to do that. It also creates leverage with the distributors because like most of these distributors either rep the Budweiser side of the house, which is like Stella, McUltra, Bud Light, Elysian, whatever, or they rep the Miller Coors side, which is like Miller, Coors Light, all those guys. And so you're far down the list on the priority list, right? You might be brand number 110. And so you want to push your way up that list on these distributors. So the more you sell in their region, the higher you are on the list and the more, it builds on itself. So that's another, I think, really important learning about this category.
One of the fantastic things from my perspective, or I should say anybody's perspective outside of the brand that's watching you guys, you're building in public, right? You are creating this. Starting that way kind of builds it too, because like I can't wait until the day I walk into a 7-Eleven, throw open a refrigerator and see it sitting right in front of me, because I'll talk about it like it's my brand, right? Like I already have a bottle sitting on my far at home, and anybody that asks, I'm like, I got a story about this, right? So it's being the marketing geniuses that you guys are. It's almost like accidentally, I'm purposely doing it this way so that brand, that feel, sort of builds up, right? People are looking at that going, I can't wait for it to be in my area. Beyond that, there are just so many pluses on what you guys are doing, the way you're doing this build in public, right? Like you're talking about the negatives and the positives. I follow both of you guys on the social media, and of course you hail your successes, but you also point to the negatives too. Conor, I remember you posting a couple, I think you just did another one recently, of all the things you're going to do this day. Like here are the 10 bullet points. You have small children at home, and of course you have a wife, and you have these dozen things you need to do between 5 a.m. and 11 p.m. And like, the first 3, I'm like, that's my whole day right there. Like, I don't know how you do it. But also, too, like the stories behind it. Like, of course, with the plastics comes the whole conversation about sterility and, how it gets involved in men and sperm and all that stuff. You posted a video with one of your children talking about, like, listen, if this keeps happening, if we keep drinking this stuff and we keep having these plastics in our system, this ain't going to happen, right? We need to fight this. So, on both perspectives, very uniquely done. And from my end of things, as I watch it unfold, I don't think you could have done it better. Where did you come up with those ideas?
Well, I think, Joe's brand was one of the best social brands in the world, right? Like Youth to the People. And I think, I had spent a lot of time, doing content creation when I was at Creator IQ. And so it felt like a natural fit. And the thing I think about is like people like to be along for the journey. They like to participate in it and they like to contribute, even if it's something just like a comment or a like, or they share it with a friend or whatever, right? They feel more connected to the brand and a part of the journey, right? Like you said, like, hey, I got it in my bar and I hand it to people. We're definitely playing the long game, right? I think like I can see the audience who interacts and sees my stuff. And it's like, my biggest segment is New York. And it's like, man, I am playing the long game. It's gonna be a couple years before we get there. But I'm like, but once we get there, baby, it's gonna be ready to go. But I think Joe has played a big role in like shaping the content. And because as much as I've experienced creating content about myself, I think, I've never built a consumer brand before, right? And I think Joe built one of the most kind of iconic consumer brands in the industry. And so I think, finding that balance between like building in public, this kind of raw content, like here's what's going on in my day, I'm a founder, whatever. And then I think we really need to dial up the kind of the brand, right? Like how do we make sure that the brand, like you see these really beautiful brands and it creates a feeling for people when they see it, right? Like Bureau's doing a really good job in the non-alc space. And so, Joe, I'd be curious on your end, when you think about kind of building that brand world, because you're doing it now at Lore too, right? You guys really got that set up. What do you think are the kind of keys to that kind of content?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's interesting because there's the key to like you want to build like every brand. I really believe every brand has to have a purpose for existence, right? Like what is the soul? What's the purpose of it existing? I think we really have that with fathers. And so I think if we can, when we're doing that, it's like, how do we, when you have that purpose to exist, how do you tell that story, right? Because so you tell a story too, as you mentioned, Connor's doing a lot of that front facing, like, hey, build it in public content, which I think especially early on is really good because we're so local in many ways, even though we have a national following, very small following, but national. But again, a lot of people are more local. It's a local thing. It feels good. And as you get bigger, you're getting, the amount of eyeballs that will be new to us every day are going to just start to double and triple and quadruple. Because if you expand to 10 states, no one knows who we are. And they're going to just see it in the grocery store. Like, maybe they, a lot of people, their first search is social media. It's not a website now. Right. And so that you want to have that branded content that is not so much like, look at this pretty picture of beer, but it's like, why does fathers exist and how do you convey that through content in a really tight, succinct way? Because, people are scrolling fast. We did that at Youth to People. It was never like, Greg and I were never big front facing like celebrities or anything. Like that was not our role. That's not what we do. No one, we weren't front facing founders. We were enough front facing to tell the story of why our products are good. But you want to be able to get like real quick, like what is Youth to People about, right? More important here, what is Fathers about? It's about clean, great tasting beer. What does clean mean? If people are like, well, what does clean mean? Because we have it literally on our label. Is there enough quick to tell them what clean means? And it's not this like deep rabbit hole to where they have to figure it out, right? Like, so great tasting, clean beer is like our goal to, right? Like if we can convey that through brand messaging all the time, great. And then you layer in what Connor's doing, especially with the founder facing building in public, which I think it's an existing phenomenon that's been around a while. But what I will say is the modern consumer brand, what I'm seeing across the board is you need to do that because there's just a lot of noise out there right now more than ever. There's a lot of celebrity brands, which the celebrity brands are really good. They're really good products. Like
I'm literally taking notes here while you're talking. That's why my keyboard's typing. I'm like, you gave me an idea. I'm like, fuck, I gotta write this down. Like yeah. I like, how do I?
There's a big, there's a bunch of big celebrity beauty brands that are launching right now, and they're really good and they're really well thought out. There's details to them, so they already have the megaphone. Their products are great, right? Like it's getting so now for us, we're not celebrities, so how do we grow? Well, again, point of existence, building in public, because now you're like getting to know this person personally, right? Like you talk about the beer to somebody, they might check it out, like, cool, great pictures, I'm into the clean. Oh, I get to know Connor, I saw this kid, maybe you see me pop in every once in a while. So I think that's helpful. But yeah, it's just a constant, again, what's the brand's purpose for existing? If we're just to make beer, then there's a million beer brands. So I don't know. So now it's like, well, our purpose is the best tasting clean beer. Oh, okay, not right. Like, you can talk about, when Sierra Nevada, an iconic beer brand was originally launched, they're going to make this like They have so many, and those brand codes and rules that Sierra Nevada has as far as around making a beer still exist today. Great tasting pale ale, great tasting craft beer, right? Like, which I think is really cool. Now, still owned by the original founder, which is very unique and typical, but you see that. So I think that's our goal. That's, I think, every brand's goal. The launches, not the brands launch without purposes, but just, brand pillars, as they call them, just hammer those home every single day.
Joe, uh, you to the people has done such an amazing job on the social end of things. I mean, better than most, if not all, right? Like you really mastered how that works and how that laid out as you scaled your brand. A little bit different here, as you're saying, like with beer, than there is with beauty, right? Like one of the things that you guys did last year, which absolutely killed it, was this Super Bowl activation, this sell around the Super Bowl when you went out there. And I was so pissed I couldn't go, but I followed it on the sites and like every photo, like I've never analyzed photos so much in my life because it was like a who's who of right? So tell me about that. Like yeah, almost have to like take out that beauty brain a little bit and put in a different sort of look and feel. Like what are the people that are going to buy my beer want to do? Where are they going to want to be? What's going to really rattle their cage? How's that transition been?
Well, I'll give credit, a lot of credit here to Connor, because this was really like his brainchild. He's like, dude, we got to do a Super Bowl party. It's in the Bay Area. People drink beer and watch football. Like it is pretty much, when he said it, I was like, yeah, I was like, should we do this? It's a little early, right? But, I think, his experience from Tribe Dynamics and Creator of like doing those events, all B2B, but like, I would go to those and they were really well done. And so it's like, can we do this still with that somewhat B2B mentality of like getting the right people in the room together to be excited about fathers during a big pivotal, a national moment that happens once a year? And how do we, as an upstart beer brand, and I had no idea how to do this and I wasn't even thinking about it. And again, this was such a great thought from Connor and using his network to like get in there and go, hey, we know Budweiser essentially owns the Super Bowl. How do we get in our own way to have fathers and then be, like say, way in the tertiary? Let's be, brain 110, because it's such a big moment and there's so much beer consumed. That's actually can be a really big business, right? And so I think having the guts to go for that was huge. And again, you saw it; it was a great success. That is very different than a beauty, in that we're doing all that and we're still only selling beer and like across 40 square miles or whatever, so it's like, wait, why would you do this big national moment? But again, the point is we're going to roll the brand out selling in San Francisco in a couple months. And so now local stuff, restaurants and bars and people, and they're like, oh, interesting, I know this brand already, right? So you get, it's an awareness thing, which comes back to beauty. It's all awareness, right? Like, a lot of brands that use PIMS, they use it to build awareness of their brand. It's the same thing. You have to get people need to see it a lot. One thing I'll say that kind of unrelated but related is beer is cycles weekly. We talked about like we deliver weekly. So it's, as much as people become loyalists, they can quickly switch. Like beauty was like, they buy a product, they're using it 3, 4, 5, 6 months at least. So you have a lot of time to really get into their routine. Whereas with beer, you're like, you might have 2 sips, you might have a couple drinks, and you got to like hopefully stay in their mindset to when they bought it the first time to buy it the second time. And that's, hopefully the great taste, hopefully the clean, like we have some reasons, but it's still like, got to be shouting fathers all we can,
Well, just to add to that event, I think for me, I think there's 2 things I think about when I think about those kinds of events. And you kind of, Joe talked about it with the Creator IQ event, but it's like the idea of building a very specific community, right? Like bringing a community together. And for us, we have Gabe, who's another co-founder who's, in with all the athletes, right? He trains Lane Johnson and Jalen Hurts and all these guys. And then I knew all the brands and Joe knows all the brands. And so I was like, hey, these athletes want to work with these brands want to work with these athletes. And we want to be a part of both of those communities, because I've watched people like Corey at Elf, who, does an enormous number of brand-to-brand partnerships. We talked to the founder of 21 Seeds. It was the fastest growing, or the best female founded alcohol brand of all time. They sold for like 180 million in 3 years, right? Done ton of brand-to-brand partnerships. So that was the main thing she did. And so for us, we want to be a part of that community, and we want to do something that kind of builds value over time. So it's like, okay, we'll do the first Super Bowl here, then we'll do the next one in LA, the one after that. And you just keep bringing that community together, and you keep having them, right? They find value in each other. And then ultimately that, kind of comes back to us, right? Those are the things I think about with an event like that. But yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah.
You have the ability, but beyond anybody else, I think, to sort of get to stir the pot, right? Like, and I'm not just talking about like the Creator IQ events where you get up on the main stage and sort of announce what's to come for the day, which is certainly a highlight for me, but everybody's really intrigued and always sort of dives in after that. It gets the juices flowing, like I mentioned. But even when, back in the tribe days, we used to go to these tribe events where you would get out in front and talk, you know, about really exciting data and analytics, right? Like, okay, so most of the world that's not involved in this looks at data and analytics as like the ho-hum moment, like, let me run to the bathroom while this guy goes up. But somehow you turned it into something that was like, wow, I never thought of it that way. Or, you know what, I should look at it that way. That sort of success in doing that, I think, easily rolls into this. When that whole Super Bowl thing came up, I just pictured you kind of doing your thing, embracing that world. But you bring up a good point about the partnerships, because I wanted to ask about that too, because we ship a lot of alcohol and we see a lot of this, not only athletes, but, the movie stars. Everybody has, a tie-in with a bourbon or some sort of thing, or they connect with them or they sponsor them. Talk to me about that creator world and how that you think that works versus the beauty world. You have that mastered. You know how that direction's going. How about the alcohol end of things? And what's the differentiator there? Like, what's different between connecting with content creators on the beer front than it was with, somebody that was buying you to the people or other brands?
I think there's a few differences, right? So one, it's definitely less developed, right? So if you were to look at the biggest creators in beauty versus the biggest creators in beer, they're going to be a lot bigger. The ecosystem's been around for a lot longer. Brands invest a lot more money in it. And so it's less developed, right? It's like where beauty was maybe like 7 years ago. You know what I mean? And part of that's this whole like local distribution model, right? Like if you're a local brand, it's hard to invest in, broad social creators because they're not driving that much business for you kind of short term. But what that does do that's really cool is it makes it so like we're reaching out to the biggest beer creators in the world, and they're like responding immediately and like, oh yeah, love what you're doing, would love to chat, da da da. So it's like it's kind of an open field in that regard, which is pretty awesome. And so it's like, we're shipping beer to top creators and they'll just post about it, like, well, it's like, oh shit, that was easy, like what like again, it felt like beauty, if you remember back during the tribe list days, like, oh wow, this is pretty easy. You just ship people some product and they talk about it, and that's all you had to do. So that part is really, really cool. I think, up until this point, we have to try to figure out when is the right time to kind of like turn it on, right? So we've talked to a lot of the brands, like we talked to Lalo Tequila, we talked to Beatbox, some of these brands who've gone on and gotten acquired for a ton of money. And they're like, yeah, we didn't really, both of them are like, we didn't really turn on social. So we'd like dominated our state. It's like once we dominate our state and then we start to go national, like that's when we lean in. And so it's weird to like, for Joe and I, because I mean, Joe's Used to the People is like a top 5 brand in the world in like EMV, right? Like they were killing it. And like, obviously I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. And so it's like, we have this like, this trigger, we're like ready to pull. We're like, okay, when do we do it? Is it yet? When do we turn it on? It's like, it's an itchy trigger finger when it comes to social. We're not sure when it, when it makes sense to flip that budget.
The funniest thing, Mike, I will say was when we started, and he's like, all right, we're going to do influencers, right? And so we're like, yeah, I was like, yeah, we could do, I'm building, I helped start a brand called Lore in the fragrance space with Melanie Bender and my cousin Greg. And, she's the best in the world at influencer, and so like we were doing some planning there and planning on fathers, like, man, we got to do this and that. And then we were going to build these really cool boxes, all these things, right? And then we're like, wait a second, like we're going to get all these people talking about it and you can buy it in like one city in Lafayette, California. No, it's like you get all this buzz and everyone goes away. And so we were cracking up. We're like, okay, we got to wait. But the other thing that was really funny was actually working with Conor. He's he taught me a ton about influencers. He's taught thousands of people tons about influencers. I was like, wait, you've never actually sent never like done a box. You've never done it.
Yeah.
Right. Like
No.
he's like, I've never done this, guy. So they was
I
like,
taught people how
actually
to do it. Never done it.
yeah,
So
it was like
funny.
so that was really actually a funny moment that we had together. Like, just like, oh, what do we put in it? What do we do? He's like, man, this is, and then the funny part was then he's like, oh, these are expensive. I'm like, yeah, you've created a real economy here. It's been really cool to kind of figure that out. And we've done some cool testing early on with different beer creators that have loved the brand and product. So again, start tease it slowly but surely. Same with the social, right? Like slowly build the social needs to feel more like, again, you're getting it's local. It needs to feel local. And then you start to, we'll tier it out as we start to grow.
I had a question for both of you from both your perspectives. It's a little off base a little bit, but seeing that you both sort of started in this whole beauty world and ventured, what do you think the creators and influencers, not only in your space, but in that space too, what are they getting? What's happening that you see happening that's going in the right direction, and what are people kind of getting wrong? Whether it's tying in with AI or diving too quick into those type of technologies, or sort of waiting too long and doing things sort of the same way over and over and over and hoping for the same success. Maybe each of you can give me kind of a quick, where do you think that whole world's going?
I mean, I think in beer, what we found is most brands aren't very good at social, right? Like they're just not, they're not great at it. And I do think it's different, right? Like people, when they talk about beer, it tends to be more stories than posts. There are some people that want to wear beer on their chest, but there's a lot of people that don't, right? They go out, they have a good time, but that's not like how they identify as a person. You know what I mean? Versus in beauty, you see a lot of people, they're like, I identify as a beauty person. And so I think it's a little bit different in terms of the landscape. And then again, I just don't think most brands are very good at it, partially because it doesn't make sense for them, right? They're like, I distribute, like I said, in these 4 counties and that's it. And like, so reaching people in Kansas doesn't help me that much. Obviously for us having national ambitions, it helps us more. We're investing ahead a little bit. But I think from an AI perspective, I think I saw a stat that like AI created content just surpassed like non-AI created content, like in terms of total content generation, it's only going to go up. So it's a part of it. And I think the best creators and the best brands are, using it as a tool to like create more, right? Create more content faster. Like you don't need a designer all the time. You can, do edits more quickly. You just have more tools available in your kind of tool belt. So Joe, have you seen the other brands you've invested in kind of, integrate AI?
It's starting to see it more again. I think where you're seeing it in a couple parts. You're seeing it in content, you're seeing it in copywriting, you're seeing it in quick fact checking on things like, right, like just even documents you're doing, legal documents, contracts, things like that. I mean, you still need all the experts, but I think you can use it to help like increase your productivity. And I think to me that's the fundamental shift. I think for beauty, most consumer brand areas, you shouldn't be using AI to reduce headcount. What you should be using AI for is to increase productivity across, so you can become a much bigger brand. So maybe long term it is a reduced headcount, but it's because you got so much bigger and you got so much more efficient. But I don't think it's to a point where yet that it replaces the experts you need in each area. So for me, that's how I'm seeing it. I think in general right now, brands that are doing the best, like it's kind of comes back to like, what's the core mission of its existence, and building like true, beyond just the great big fandom moments. It's like people are just in love with the brand, and they're ultimately your best influencers are your own community talking about the product. So you have to have a best in class product. What's interesting in beer is, to Connor's point earlier, it's like, yeah, if we grow bunch following over, it doesn't matter. The real influencers in beer early on for us, it's like the bartenders, the restaurant owners, the things like that. Cause they're like, if we get on tap, we got this great new place around tap locally called Rocco's, and they're moving through beer fast. I dropped some beer off the other day. We met Rocco for the first time. Connor met him. They're moving through beer fast. Why? Well, they like the beer. They like the taste of it first. Interestingly, like they love the taste of it. They like the clean store. They like the organic. They have a customer that wants, some organic stuff on the menu, but it's the taste. And Rocco, and then I believe, the main bartenders there all really like the beer. They're into it. So they're telling people come in, they're like, oh, you should try Father's. Great. Right. Like other places, same thing. And so those become your biggest influencers, because really to grow a successful beer brand, you need people walking into restaurants asking for it. And so that's the influencer. And those influencers aren't influencers in that they're going in social media and talking about it. Some are starting to, funny enough, but it's, as Connor said, it's way behind. So you got to get that. You're like seeding in person,
Yeah.
outside of the digital world. which is kind
I
of
mean,
fun too.
sampling's a huge
Yeah.
part of it. I think I'll say the other thing you mentioned, Joe, and I think I've observed is like, it's definitely getting, in the other sectors, like the beauty sector, like it's getting pretty competitive, right? So like the kind of the old methods of just shipping out product,
Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
you have to do that, but like, because people aren't going to talk about you if they don't have the product, but like, the number of kind of paid relationships in combination with gifting has grown dramatically, right? And the depth of those relationships has grown dramatically.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something else that's changed over time.
Yeah.
And on my end too, like with the customization, which ties right in what you're saying, like uh, Joe, you probably remember back in the day, and Connor, you're involved with it too. But like brands used to be like, okay, I got 12 SKUs, give everybody one of each, put it in a box, send it off to them, right? Like now that
Yeah.
just doesn't cut it anymore. Everybody,
Yeah.
Connor wants this, and it has to arrive on this day. It has to have a note that says this, and Joe's wait 2 days, then ship him this and put the note. Like
It's yeah.
in my world, that's what we have to sort of come up against as these creators and influencers and brands change their expectations. We have to evolve around that.
Mm-hmm.
The fun
100%.
part for us was we don't have a PIMS on the West Coast. So we've had to, Joe has a warehouse for his other brand, and he's starting another business, the shipping out product for us from his like family's warehouse, which is fun. And it's the same thing. It's like, we need you to add this sticker to this bottle with this thing and write this note. And
Yes.
got a long
built
time
a career
family.
on that. Welcome to it.
It's so funny. They're like so many demands. I'm like, oh man, okay, we can do this for a while, but it's not,
he's
not
not trying to be PIMS.
No. I'm not trying to be in logistics. I'm not trying to be in the restaurant industry. I'm not trying to be in logistics. I'm trying to be in brand building with beer. But it's been fun also to do and like learn it because you see it, get it out, and it allows us to do it at this early stage without any size or scale. Like no one wants to take you on to ship out 10 boxes a week, with minimal, real. So it's cool. It's cool to see it. But yeah, it was pretty funny when we were trying to figure it out,
Joe's like, I think I can do this. I'm like, all right, dude, go for it.
Phrase, how hard could it be? You just put in stuff.
Just throw it in the box,
My warehouse manager is calling me. He's like, we're shipping beer. What's going on here? I got a fridge of beer in the warehouse all of a sudden. What's happening?
Yeah, and then the fridge freezes over and yeah.
That's the whole thing.
As we're coming up on time here, but as you guys were talking, I had a question in my brain. Each of you are founders now. You've been founders in the past, and I listen to you. I watch what you post, and there's just, and we've said it a couple times even during this podcast. There's so much going on and so much to do. In my world, if I don't have everything sort of okay, it's Friday, I'm going to do this and then this and then this, and if I don't accomplish it, there's no sleeping tonight. My list is this big, your guys' list is this big, right? So how do you allocate with this chaos? Like, how much is it sort of the shiny thing you go after? Is it the squeaky wheel gets the oil, or is it like, I'm going to deal this much time for production, I'm going to deal with this much time with retail, this much time is going to be into my content? Like, you both do it so well. Maybe you both can give me the answer on how you master that.
I'll say early days, a lot of it is like you have your plan, you have your to-do lists, but then you figure you know that 50 to 70% of your day is going to be different than what you thought it was. And you just be okay with that and you just roll with it. You always got we just went through a big transfer to a bigger co-manufacturing partner. As we've been going through that transfer, we have to do all of our USD organic certification again. There's like a known, every day, you have to push out certain documents for that to do it the right way. Then there's other stuff that's just, Connor and I talk probably too much per day of oh, this popped up. What do we do? I don't know. Let's talk about it and figure it out. And use gut instinct, So I think it's a combination of organized stuff, like Connor's hitting stores, doing these things. You saw his post with all the things, right? Half the reason he doesn't get that list done each day is not because he couldn't have, is more that 5 other things popped up that we weren't even thinking about.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the two things I think about are and I think I've had the benefit of both John, who's my co-founder at Tribe, and then Joe, my co-founder here. John used to always say, focus on the important, not the urgent, right? And Joe says it in a different way. He's like, what's the most important thing we have to do today, right? And he says that often. I mean, what's the, okay. Yeah, there's all this other stuff. What's the, 1 or 2 things we, have to do today? That focus is really powerful. And I think I can get caught up in like, I've got, oh, here's my fucking 175 things I need to do. And I've always got a million fucking ideas and I'm sending them in and I'm, and so like with both of them, they're like, okay. I know there's like 175 things, but like, what's the one thing or two things we like have to do, right? And so I think that, and I have my own methods for doing that, but I think that's really helpful is like, just start the day, write down what are the most important things I need to do today. Okay, I'm going to do them. And for me, I've been doing, it's funny, like people are really digging me doing these like daily Instagram posts, like here's the 10 most important things for today I'm going to do. And I try and do them all. I think the second thing is a lot of people talk about kind of like work-life balance, right? Like, oh, I'm on the clock, I'm off the clock. And there's a lot of people that want to live that life, and that's great, right? But I think that one of the benefits of creating a business, particularly a business that you are excited about and passionate about and into, is like it becomes part of your identity, right? It becomes part of who you are. And so it doesn't feel like you're working, right? Like Joe will call me at 7 a.m. and I'll call him at 7 p.m. He's like, hey, I want to talk about something real quick. And it's not like I'm like doing it because I feel like I have to. It's because it's like part of who I am. Like it's fun. It's exciting. It's interesting. It's for me, I like anything game related. So it's like sports, board games, video games, any kind of competition, whatever. And for me, business is like the ultimate competition or game, right? Like high stakes, infinite options, infinite competition. And so I think those are the two things for me that like, how you get through the day is like try to focus as much as you can, which is really hard for me. And then not for everybody, but it's like, this is who I am. It's part of my identity now. It's not just like a job.
You're not a Detroit Lions fan, are you?
Do you see
No,
this, by the
I'm
way? Yes.
I'm a 49ers fan. Bay Area guy, 49ers, so we got that,
Yeah.
So Mike bought me this helmet right
It's
there. It's a
awesome.
Barry Sanders signed helmet.
Love that.
Oh,
Awesome.
nice. Okay, I've seen that. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Every call.
Yeah.
I always pull Connor's leg to him. Like this momentum that you build and this go comes from years of abuse as a child, rooting for the Lions. And their
Gotta
2
root for-
win seasons for 2 decades or whatever.
It's funny. I'm a bit of a spoiled Bay Area sports fan now, which I couldn't say. Well, I could say it for the 49ers early in my life, and then I couldn't say it for anybody else. And then it's like the Giants had their streak, and the Warriors have had their streak. I'm like, I'm good. Because I'm talking to my dad. My dad's like, he's like, oh man, we got to win again. And I'm like, Dad, you were a Giants fan, a San Francisco Giants fan your whole life. And the first World Series, that he ever saw was 2010. Yeah. So you went through 50 years. And so, I'm like, I'm good. I've seen all of my teams win a championship, Now, will it ever happen again in my life? I don't know. Will it be, in Connor's world in 30 years, maybe, but right now I'm living pretty good. So
I've never seen a single team I support win a championship. Well, I guess the Warriors. I support the Warriors. I guess that one counts. Yeah.
But no, it's as Connor said, it's something we do. It's something we love. I think. Yeah. We're fortunate that having co-founders, we also have Gabe and Harvey and Steve. We've got a big group of co-support, which allows we all have kids. We're all dads, so we can rotate around to family stuff. Another thing, like I'm going to be somewhere here, he's going to be somewhere there. Hey, I got to do the same thing, no problem. So like, I think I had that. I think Connor had that with John. I had that with my cousin Greg. These people, so it helps to. You're always on. There's nights where I put my kids to bed and then I'm up till 11, 12 working on stuff. Or there's a Saturday morning I got 3 hours. Great, let's crank away. Like. Because you can, as Connor said, you can keep growing it. You can keep growing it the more you put in. So it's a lot of fun, but it's different.
We should wrap, but I think the last thing I'll say is, with that being said, right, it is part of our lives, it's part of identities, that whole kind of thing. Again, one of the benefits I've had both with John and with Joe, like with John, when we first started, we're like, okay, we both came from divorced families, right? Joe comes from one too. And so same with Greg, his co-founder, right? Is like, okay, like, business is really important, but family's always going to be number one, right? And I think we've taken the same approach here. Like there's times like, hey, I'm hanging with the kids. Like Joe's always doing stuff with his family. Like, so I think, yes, like business is way up there, but family's always going to be number one, right? We make sure that we prioritize that over work.
Attaboy. We have that in common too. So add that to the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got what,
Absolutely.
5 kids, 4 kids, 12, something like that?
Last time I checked, there was 4, but there might be another one floating around. Connor and Joe, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, guys. If you haven't checked out Fathers yet, please do. with these two great personalities and the team they pulled together, it's going to be nothing but from here. So congrats. Best of luck. Can't wait to see what's next.
Awesome. Thanks,
So,
Mike.
yeah.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Mike.